All right, the car is back. It is back from Sergio's place at Leonardi's Auto Performance because I had a problem that I didn't anticipate, and that problem was that this engine block had the threads stripped, and I could not torque that cylinder head. The threads stripped, probably due to heating or overheating. So he had to repair the threads, put in inserts. It was complicated, it was expensive, but there was no way around it. And then I had him put in the cylinder heads and torque them down because I didn't want to go through that whole process, have him come home, have the car come home, then I get into torquing them and suddenly discover that everything strips out. So instead he did it, that's good. But I do have to install lots of things. Time to put in the camshafts, and we'll take off this protective plastic and we'll get to work reassembling this engine. Alright, so I'm certainly extremely thankful to Sergio over at Leonardi Auto Performance. He did a terrific job in being able to rethread these stripped out threads in the engine block and then retorque the cylinder head. And he was extremely focused on doing that job, and again, in no way do I want to say anything bad because I am very indebted to this man who helped me out of a terrible jam, and I will add that he is a hell of a nice guy. But there was one little thing that was unfortunately overlooked. I had left in this car these. These are the gaskets that go from the exhaust manifold to the exhaust pipe. Now look, when I get underneath this car right now, when I get underneath and you look right up in here, let's see if we can show this. Yeah, right there. So this joint is already put together, except there's no gasket. I just showed you where that gasket is. And Lord knows I'm not going to take apart what the man just did. So I have to now take off the catalytic converter, deal with these rusty, nasty bolts, and hopefully lower this thing. Now I've already sort of done that on the other side, except I don't have enough clearance. It's the same thing here. So I'm going to have to take this thing all the way down. So once again, I'm tremendously thankful and indebted to Sergio, but gosh, it would have been such a small amount of extra work to just put those gaskets in, and then I wouldn't have to do this. But you know what? It's a project, and I guess that's what this is all about. Okay, so by removing these screws, I was able to lower the catalytic converters, and then so now you can see that that screw is low enough so I can take the gasket and I'll be able to squeeze it in here and then tighten everything back up. So that wasn't the worst thing in the world, you know. A minor little setback, no big deal, no big deal. A fair trade-off for having fixed what needed to be fixed. All right, this was a big moment. I got it all back. I got it all back together. It was really, really hard to do this. I even got the heat shield in here thanks to a terrific diagram that I wound up finding on the internet. You know, this heat shield diagram was not even on the Jaguar information that I have on disk. So very, very grateful to one of those forums. And, you know, it really wasn't the biggest deal in the world to do this. I just had to loosen up everything underneath, and now I'm going to have to go in and tighten it, but the hard part is done. I got all the studs in. I got everything tightened up. Look how nice that is. I have the gasket in, of course, the brand new gasket, and I think we're now in business. Okay, so the next step is now to put on the camshafts, and I'm going to go ahead and lock them down, torque them, and on the B bank, which is the driver's side in the US, we're going to go ahead and line up the timing notches so that I can then put on the timing chain on that side. At that point, we'll go ahead and take off the special tool that maintains the timing. We'll put it on the other side, and then we'll set that timing with that chain. So, it's very exciting. We're really making progress. Take a look again. Here's our vehicle. Yesterday, spent the whole day getting the exhaust pipes hooked back up. Even got the heat shields on. That was really tough. I have all the tappets back in. They have been numbered thanks to the cylinder head depot, and they were all put back in order. And we're going to go ahead and get this done. Pretty soon this engine hopefully is going to be running. Alright, on the driver's side we have the camshafts installed. These were torqued down to 10 Newton meters. They were all in order. Intake and exhaust. I have the special tool here. This lines up with the cams, and there's flats on the cams, and when it's flat like this and all parallel and locked in place, then this unit is timed. Now I only have one of these, so I'm going to have to put on the chain for this side. Then once this is all timed and set, I'll remove this and build up the other side. Excellent. Making progress. One of the known issues with this car is that the camshaft guides would crack. Not the camshaft, but the timing chain guides would crack. It's recommended, therefore, to upgrade to the new all-aluminum style, which I did. So I was able to get this kit. This has all the tensioners, all the timing chain guides, everything that you'd need, and that really should be done. It's about $400 or $500. This is the difference. This is the new piece, aluminum with the plastic in it, and this piece was all plastic, and you'll see the big crack here, and this is apparently what they all used to do. They would just crack, break. So as I'm seeing with this new kit, it's not just new stuff, but it's a redesign, and it's not like they just made exactly the same shape and used new materials, but they actually modified it significantly. Now here's an example. This is the old tensioner, and this is the equivalent new tensioner. Now if you look right here, this distance is smaller than this distance, and as a consequence the original screws are now 5 millimeters too long. So I need to go out and I needed to get M6 1.0 pitch 35 millimeter screws. Or I could have just cut these, but I tell you, I didn't really want to cut these. I'm always thinking that I don't want to take a OEM part and start modifying it. Let me save that for my plan B, because of course plan B is putting the old thing back, and I'm not planning on it. But so I went and I got some screws. The best I could find was M6 40. I'll cut those down by 5 millimeters. Hopefully that'll work well. But it's a very tedious process, it really is. Alright, so now we have the left side of the engine all put together. We have the timing chains back on. I have the new rails, chain guides. So everything is set. Then I disconnected the tool, but you can see that the timing flats are up top here. The tool's now been removed to the other side. Here we are. And so now I've reinstalled the camshafts. We've torqued everything. I have the tool in place with the timing flats up. Now we're going to go ahead and put the timing chain guides and rails on, as well as the chains and the VVT. Alright folks, this engine is back together. The cylinder heads are on. The camshafts are on. Everything is torqued. I have the timing chains, which are new, on. I have timing tensioners, which are new. They're on. All of these rails are good. Everything here has been upgraded and updated to the newest 3rd generation version, which is not defective. This will actually last. This will not crack. This is the driver's side, the VVT unit. Everything is torqued down to the right specifications. So now I'm going to spin the engine clockwise, of course, for a full revolution. Make sure all the timing still stays right. There has been much progress. I have put on the air intake. I put on the valve covers. They're torqued down appropriately. We hooked back up the fuel injectors. I was able to upgrade this particular part from the plastic to aluminum. I hooked up the majority of the wires. I put the throttle body back on. This piece, which is the fuel purge valve, had actually broken when I tried to remove a vacuum line. So I had to get a gently used part from an auto recycler, and it's guaranteed to be working, and it was only about 30 bucks. So that was lucky, because you really don't want to break things as you're trying to put the car back together. I was able to put the front cover back on. I put back on the water pump pulley. I installed a new tensioner. I installed a new idler pump pulley. One of the very hardest jobs was getting back on the harmonic balancer and tightening it and torquing it. I was able to do something I think fairly clever. I needed to put it to 280 pound-feet of torque. So what I did was make an exactly 4-foot extension. This is precisely 4 feet from where it engaged the tool to where I drilled a hole. Then I put this over the wrench like this. So, okay. Now we measure the distance from here exactly back to 4 feet. At 4 feet, which is right here, I drilled a hole. I then took a good old-fashioned meter that I use to weigh my luggage when you go to the airport, and this will go up to 75 pounds. So here's what I do. I put in the hook. We hook the whole thing up to the bolt, and now you pull. And when I have reached 70 pounds here, that gets multiplied by 4 feet for a final result of 280 pound-feet. And in that way I was able to properly torque the bolt, because I do not have a torque wrench which would sufficiently reach that point. So that was good. I thought that was kind of clever. Those math classes do come in handy, and this is one of those cases where I think my physics lessons might have paid off a little bit. So I'm extremely pleased. Right now I have to put the belt back on, and I'm going to button up the bottom of the car. I still have the window open on the torque converter. We'll put the plastic cover back on that. I'm then going to get the car off of its jack stands. It's going to be standing on its own. And you know what? We're getting very close to actually starting this vehicle. So I'm quite pleased. A great milestone has been reached. The car is back together. The only thing I haven't put on are the engine covers. Those are merely decorative. Everything functional is back together. I'd like to keep the covers off just to make sure the car is going to run. A good friend of mine made what I think is a practical suggestion. His suggestion was, roll the car out of your garage the first time you start it, just in case the thing blows up. Sounds reasonable. I have to fill the car with fluids. I got to put in engine oil. I got to put in coolant. Double and triple check everything. And then we're going to try to give it a start. Alright guys, well, let's see if this thing's going to start. Should be interesting. See how it goes. The engine just started. The engine is running. You have got to be kidding me. The engine is running. Alright, there's a few things that we see. First of all, the driver's door. I'm sorry, the anti-lock brake is open. This means that I'm going to have to rebuild that anti-lock brake business. We knew that it would sound a little rough at the beginning. That was expected. But it's running. I have some leaks. I don't know why. What the hell is here? Why am I leaking? Looks like I'm leaking oil from the crankcase. That shouldn't be. Yeah, there comes the smoke. Why is that leaking oil? I don't know, but we better turn it off. Drives smoothly though. I mean, it runs. This smoke is just from burned off oil, but the $1 million question is why there should be any oil that's burning like that. You know, it may just be the assembly. I'm not sure that this is a disaster. What else is leaking? Oh, I got coolant that's leaking. You know, I've been suspicious that that radiator needed to be recored. That's going to be costly. Alright. Well, it's a process. I think I'm going to have to get that radiator leak dealt with. And I have to understand why this is leaking oil. Okay. Okay, so to explore this leak, this is what I've done. I have once again opened up the engine. I took out the fan. Now I'll be able to inspect this radiator, which I've had my suspicions about for a while. I'm going to start this engine. Now, by the way, the engine is sounding a lot better now. They said it would run rough at the beginning because all the parts kind of have to work together. The lubrication has to circulate. That issue where the oil was dripping out of the valve gasket, that was very temporary, and I think that was also settling, and it's probably because I had to put the oil in the driver's side valve cover, and until it all circulated and percolated down and got through the pump, I think that's what the issue was. Alright, so let's start this engine, and you're going to hear it now. Actually runs very smoothly. It really does. It actually runs very nicely and very smoothly. And whatever oil issue there may have been no longer is present. Now, I need to find out why this is leaking fluid and where it's coming from. Alright, already I'm seeing something. Ugh. Yeah. See it? coming from high up, so I'm sure that this radiator is going to be toasted. Interesting. Wait a minute. I might have caught the first break I've caught in this entire process. Wow. Is it possible it's not leaking from the radiator? Is it possible it's leaking from the hose? That would be like the first time I have caught a break, period. Wow, that would be really, really nice. I don't know if I'm going to be that lucky, but let me see if I can just redo this connection and maybe the problem will go away. Alright, let's see if we're going to get lucky. Good old-fashioned Lowe's. Could not get it at Home Depot. They didn't have what I wanted. For $2.41, got a little stainless steel hose clamp. Let's see if this hose clamp is going to do what it takes to stop that leak. Okay, so after our hose clamp, for what I guess boils down to about $1, goes on, and I refill the system. I don't see anything here. We're going to start this engine, and we're going to see whether or not we have success. Okay, ignition on. Starts beautifully. Sounds nice. I think we got it. This is my lucky day. It does not look like that I have to replace the it does not look like I have to go ahead and replace the radiator. Wow. Well, it's about time I got a lucky break. That's the first one. We'll put the fan back in. And we'll take it from there. Excellent.